Do you like working in California Strength?
Very much. Very, very much.
Why?
This is a great place to live, and I get the chance to work with some great athletes. And what more could a coach ask?
Yeah. Do you have a funny Donnie Shankle story to tell me?
Not on your life.
I keep asking him that and he won't.
Not on your
He won't
life.
answer.
You have to ask Donnie about the funny stories. You get about 5 beers in Donnie, and I guarantee 3 things will happen. Number 1, he'll tell you the Thai lady boy story. Number 2, he'll take his pants off. And number 3, he'll pass out. Happens every time.
I think there's a bit of Irish blood in Donnie. For all the aspiring coaches out there, could you give me a few of the vital things that you've learned over the last, you've been coaching, what, 20 years at this stage?
Close to it. I think the number 1, not a few, but the number 1 is the minute you think you actually know something or know it all, you're an idiot. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
And the more you learn, the more you realize you have to learn. If you can keep
the beginner's mind.
Then you keep improving. That's what everyone wants to do, whether you're a coach or lifter, is become better at what you're doing.
Okay, I like that. It's a nice approach. And in terms of structuring your programming and that kind of thing, what were the major lessons that you've learned in that over the years?
Number 1 is that there is no ideal program. What works great in one situation, whether it be atmosphere, group of lifters, whatever, doesn't always work the same in another situation. You have to use your head. You can't just follow a cookie cutter program. I hesitate sometimes to give. It's not that I hesitate to give our programming out to people like it's a secret, but sometimes you go into too many details and it gives people the idea that I'm just going to follow this and this is going to be great. And I don't think that's the case. I think everyone has to adapt and learn and figure out what approach works best for their situation. And the other thing is, in my opinion, the other key is the longer that I've coached, the more methodical I get in trying to make progress with kids and technique and strength and things. When many people, myself included, when they first start, you're guns a-blazing right from the first workout someone does, and then as you get more and more experience, you realize that in the long run, you're farther ahead and much quicker to a certain level of progress if you slow down when someone starts and make sure that the basics are more perfected before you move on from any certain thing.
And so one of the major things is obviously keeping this or developing this long-term perspective instead of, that's something that
you have to think about what you want to happen not only this year, but 5 years from now. And is it going to be quicker to push somebody a little faster, but maybe develop a couple bad habits, or is it going to be quicker to spend a little more time and keep any bad habits from developing, even if it maybe takes a little off the next 6 months? They're going to be further ahead in 5 years. So.
Yeah, a lot of your athletes over here have the luxury of obviously an experienced coach. But what would you say to the people out there who are either training alone or in a situation that wouldn't be quite ideal?
Well, many good lifters have trained in those situations. It doesn't mean you can't succeed. It does mean you have to use your head more, and you have to be more of a student of weightlifting. And in some cases, I think you can make that into an advantage. I have my own perspective in coaching is that I want my lifters to think for themselves as much as possible. I don't want my lifters to be the type that just, okay, here's my program, this is what coach said, and I'm going to do exactly this, and I'm not going to think. I want them to think for themselves enough to where they can assist me, in coaching them and have a good feel for their body and what works and what doesn't work and what feels good and doesn't feel good. And if you train by yourself, you're forced to do that. But I think a lot of lifters that I have seen that coach themselves make the one biggest mistake that's the most common and the worst mistake is to not be methodical and systematic in how they train and how they change things. In other words, they read about one coach who's having some success with an athlete and it's the latest craze, and they're like, okay, I'm going to do that program, I'm going to follow this guy, that's the ticket. And then they become frustrated perhaps, and they read or hear or see someone else or some other athlete that follows a different program, and they say, well, screw this, I'm going to go and do this. And they end up jumping back and forth, and there's no systematic way that they approach it. I think that if you're training by yourself, you have to watch out for that a lot more, just because you don't have the same perspective on yourself as that another person does. And try to change one thing at a time, and be methodical in how you change your training. If you change 6 things at a time, you don't know what worked and what didn't. You have no idea. But if you change one thing at a time and you improve, you can say, well, you know, doing squats this way worked better for me. Or, you know, I tried this on my squat program and it did not work. If you changed your reps on the snatch, the number of days a week you trained, and your squat program all at the same time, and you get stronger, well, what actually caused it, you don't know. That's just a stupid example, but the basic thing is to be systematic in how you alter your program and how you adjust your training over time. If you're systematic, every time you change, you learn something.
Yeah.
You either learn something that is good or you learn something that's bad, but you learn something either way. If you're not systematic, you never learn anything. That's
a good point, actually, yeah. Let's say for lifters who you think struggle with consistency in competitions, what do you think is the best way for them to become consistent, I suppose?
Number one, do the lifts. There's no substitute for doing lots of snatches and clean and jerks, in my opinion. Number two, I wrote an article years ago called The Training Weight, and it was a very short article for a blog, and even though I've written a lot of stuff since then, I think that was probably the best thing I've ever written. And the basics of the article was that lifters, especially intermediate and beginner lifters, because once you're at the elite level, you should be pretty consistent with a high percentage of your max, but especially the more intermediate beginner lifters oftentimes will follow a program that there's a certain expectation of. I should be able to do 80% for 3 triples or 5 doubles or whatever, and they base what they're training off of what they should be able to do, not necessarily what they can do. And the concept of the training weight is the concept that you pick the weight that you use in the majority of your training sessions is the weight that is basically the heaviest weight that you can consistently do correctly. You can consistently make technically correct, beautiful lifts with. If that happens to be 90% of your max or 95, you're obviously going to be training heavier. If you're a beginner that might have gotten lucky and snatched 100 kilos one time, but you miss 50% of the time with 80, well, obviously you're not going to be able to train with 80%, even if a program calls for it. You may have to train with 50 kilos in order for every lift to be consistently correct and beautiful. And so I think the key to consistency is swallow your pride, swallow your ego a little bit, train with a weight you can do again and again and again correctly, and try to move that weight up instead of being so concerned with what your max is. As the weight you can do correctly, consistently moves up, your max will go with it. And
just lastly, what role do you think, how long have you been in California now?
Been in California for about 9-10 months now.
What role do you think California Strength as a club and a company is going to play in American weightlifting? Or what would you hope to happen?
The biggest thing, I think, is our business model. Right now we support and we have 3 lifters that are training as full-time professional lifters that are supported through our training facility and the paid work that we do with other athletes, all the way from high school baseball players to pro football players, people getting ready for the draft, whatever. We would hope to be able to support 5, 6, 7, 8 people in the future as full-time professional lifters. But what we can do in our location is only one location. What I would hope is to prove this as a business model so that other people can use this. And ideally, I would love to see 100, 200, 300 full-time professional weightlifters in the United States, or even more than that. Right now we have an incredibly small number. We need more to really be competitive, and we're never going to be in a situation where the government, the USOC, whatever, is just going to provide us the means to support that many lifters. It's going to have to come through private means. We're doing it successfully through private means. If we continue to be successful, I hope that business model will then be used by other people to spread this out, and so that the U.S. can have, at some point, enough lifters training full-time that we can be more competitive on the international scene.
Lovely stuff. And just so you can plug in your muscle driver company.
Yes.
Yes. What do your barbells have and your weights have that no one else has?
Well, every time you buy a barbell that's not a Pendlay barbell, somewhere a baby cries. No, we have good equipment. It's made in America. Our company supports weightlifting in a big way. We do donate to various teams that go overseas. We also are the official equipment sponsor for USA Weightlifting, so we supply the warm-ups and singlets and gear and everything for all the international teams. We aim to be as big a support to USA Weightlifting as we can, and obviously that all comes from equipment sales.
Yeah.
So, you know, we sell very top quality plates, bars, shoes, apparel, other equipment that's, you know, used in weightlifting, and sure, we certainly appreciate any support.
Okay, and where's the next seminar you're going to do internationally?
I believe we will be going to Dublin, Ireland, before too long.
Awesome.
Date to be announced.
All right, thanks a lot, Glenn.
No problem.